Hey YouTube, I got another video coaching review. This one's from Jake. Thanks Jake for letting me use your video coaching review for content on my channel. If you haven't seen one of my video coaching reviews before, basically I sit down here at my computer and I review the person's form that sent me a video. Maybe not form, it can be anything from form to tuning advice, diet type advice, strength training, training plans, you name it. Whatever anybody wants to know about or whatever they're looking for help for, they write down in an email or do a little video blog like I am right now and describe to me some things that they're looking for help on, and then I sit down and review all of the data, the videos that they sent or whatnot, and then give my opinions on how they should make some changes in order to become a better archer. So if you're interested in signing up for a video coaching review, I'll have links in the description below and a card at the top up there to my website, jkaminski.com. And you'll have all the information there on how to sign up. And if you do sign up for a video coaching review, you have the option of making it public so I can use it for content on my channel, or you can keep it private for yourself or share it with your coach. Anyway, Jake, thanks for letting me use your video coaching review for content on my channel. Let's get to it. Hey there, Jake. Thanks for submitting a video coaching review, and thank you for letting me use it on my channel as well for content. This type of stuff oftentimes helps people because a lot of people struggle with the same thing, so thanks for letting me use this. So we'll get right into it. We'll check your email and your message first, and then we'll get into your videos. So it's been a couple of months since you did the video coaching review previous with me, and some of the things you've tried to make adjustments to are, well, you made a custom grip and you noticed that shooting with a custom grip, you feel a lot more tension in your bow arm tricep and a bit of soreness for a few hours after shooting. Not sure this is a function of your grip or just that it's getting engaged properly. I will check that and let you know. In general, feeling the tension in the bow arm tricep is a good thing because you need it to help stabilize everything when at full draw. But as far as the soreness afterwards, that's maybe a little concerning depending on the type of soreness. If it's just like the muscle's been used, in my experience, that's somewhat normal. But if it's any sharp and stabbing electrical type of discomfort, then I definitely would consider seeing a physio or a massage therapist or something of that nature because in my experience dealing with that kind of stuff, something needed some help. At minimum with some soft tissue work to help break up some adhesions or things like that had formed. So just some guidance there without seeing the form. We'll check that though to be sure. You try to clean up your release and not make it such a jerky and big motion. You really focus on keeping the head still, and you think you're bringing your shoulders too high, and that's something you're trying to work on. So I'll check that too. And your consistency's been getting better. You're working on accuracy now, avoiding big deviations. You found the first arrow or two of an end is pretty consistent, but when you have a flyer or a big one off, it's towards the end of an end. And especially, so you were shooting 3 arrow ends in the video, but if you shoot higher arrow ends, you notice it more. You don't feel overbowed. So, yeah, like maybe it's a mental thing, seeing arrows group nice and then wanting the last one to go in. That is definitely a potential. So something to pay attention to in regards to that. Specifically, if you notice you've got a lot of arrows in the middle and you got your last one to go, use that as an extra added amount of pressure for you to help deal with it. So when you're either in a tournament or out in a field and you have to make a good shot, then you're basically you're in the same kind of condition where it matters now. And so what you can do is try to put yourself in a scenario and try to deal with that as best as possible. So always the standard is go back to basics, go back to the things that work, do what you need to do in order to make things happen the way you want them to happen. So, you know, it's easier said than done, but each arrow is its own. Each arrow is only as important as the one before and the one after. They're no more important than either or. So trying to have that perspective will help eliminate those kind of things. Also, you might want to potentially shoot arrows in groups. This is something I experimented with because I noticed 6 arrow ends. Sometimes I'd have a hiccup on like the 4th arrow sometimes for some reason. And so what I ended up doing was shooting them in 2 arrow groups or 3 arrow groups, depending on how I felt. So meaning I'd shoot an arrow, immediately grab an arrow, put it in the quiver, shoot a next arrow, and then just take an extra breath. Look around, look somewhere else, think of something else just for a minute or two, a moment or two, not a minute, and then go back to it. So it kind of like broke them up in 2 arrow sections. So if it was a 6 arrow end, 2, 2, and 2, or 3 arrow ends, 3 and 3, or maybe if it was a 5 arrow end, I might do 3 and 2. Or something like that. And just always say every second arrow I'll take a break, every third arrow I'll take a break, and it's just a breather. And it can help kind of give yourself a little bit of an opportunity to reset so that kind of thing just doesn't happen. So that might be something you want to play with in addition to using it as good practice. If you do recognize you got 5 in there and you got 1 left in your quiver and you want to put that last one in, well, then it's time to make sure you still do the things you need to do. Hit your marks, have those things be the focus. Make sure you're doing the steps that you need to do and thinking about the things you need to do. Otherwise, when the moment comes and the opportunity happens and you don't have that default mode of go to basics, do it the right way no matter what happens, then that's where problems come in. So that's what I would start with. And then this was some notes you had submitted with the videos, some of the things you were focusing on. Again, minimizing the head movements. The biggest thing you've been trying to do is work on rotation and angular drawing as well as alignment, starting in the setup position. You notice an improvement, but you think you could do some more work there and get some more scapular movement. I'll check that and we'll find out. Something you've been struggling on is a hollow chest. Yeah, I checked a video and I saw that too. You really try to emphasize the pelvic tilt for the flat back and core engagement, but you end up with a chest sticking out, as I can see in the videos. So I've got an idea for that, and we'll go over that. And additionally, excuse me, on your bow hand, you're starting to develop a callus on the base knuckle of your thumb, which I would assume is this spot here. That is normal. No matter what you do, it's just going to happen. And it's totally normal, even though it's not pushing against the grip when at full draw. Basically what happens as the bow is launching out of your hand and jumping out of your hand properly, the grip just rubs on that knuckle ever so slightly, and I had a like a smooth callus that was built up there. It wasn't like thick like my finger ones were, but it was still a callus nonetheless. So as long as it's not cracking, hurting, or causing you to change your form and things like that, then it's pretty much normal and expected to have happen. And then you try to clean up your release and try to make it less movement, and think your shoulders can come down some more. So we will, let's see, I want to make sure I get the right one up. Yep. Top view. All right. So I already watched one of you shooting, and as you can tell, before you go to lift, you have a very over-exaggerated pelvic tilt because you're trying to prevent the hollow back. So I can understand, because you still end up in this position, why you're really overdoing the pelvic tilt. So when I say overdoing it, is quite apparent from this view here, how much you're doing it to the point of where you're bending your knees. Right now they're probably pretty straight, but there you go, you just bent your knees from there to there. You bent your knees, and now you're going to tuck your hips. So as you can tell, your back is flat now, so that's why I would assume you're trying to do it so much. But then as you go to lift, that chest just comes up. So two things would be I would step down the amount that you have to tuck the hips as far as how aggressive you are with it by 80%. Really just do much, much less as far as how much emphasis you put on it, because you're tucking the hips so much to the point of where you're bending your knees. And part of doing the hip tuck is keeping the knees locked. You need to keep your legs completely straight, tighten the quads, which will lift the kneecap up. So it's counterintuitive, because usually, everybody says never lock your knees. Well, in archery, you actually should be locking your knees, but not the entire time you're on the line, only for the 8 to 12 seconds that it takes to shoot each arrow, so you won't pass out, basically. So tuck the hips to the level that you can keep your legs straight, nothing more, and don't do anything more than like a 2 out of 10, give or take. So to prevent the chest from coming up into this position here, you can see from literally the bottom of your rib cage basically down, your back's flat, your lumbar spine's flat, and everything's good to go. Obviously the knees are bent, but if those were straight, it would look better. So what's happening is fairly common, and it happened to me for years at the training center. I had my ribs popping out like this, like crazy, when I came to full draw. And it ultimately came down to, in my opinion, just core control. I did not a lot, but I did some core exercises when I was younger, sit-ups and planks, because those were simple, and I, could do planks for a good amount of time. As a young shooter, less than 18, I could do it for more than a minute to 2 minutes at a time, which is not that long, but for most people, it's a long time. And the first thing I did when I moved out of the training center was the gym leader, the main trainer at the gym, basically made us all do crunches. And I was like, why are we doing crunches? I can do crunches like all day long, not a problem, because I can do sit-ups and I can do planks and I can do all these other things. And she laughed and said, all right, fine, let's do a contest. We're going to see, because sit-ups and core, it does some core, but it does a lot more hip flexors if you do them the way you really shouldn't be. And the main way is you've got to engage the core correctly, and you learn that through crunches. So she's like, let's do a test. We'll do 50 crunches. We'll rest a minute and a half and do 50 more, and then we'll talk. And I don't know if I even got to 50 the first time around without a break, because I didn't at all engage the abdominal muscles in the way that is really needed for stability. Even though I could do planks, it was not nearly as tightly bound and controlled. So trying to keep the chest down and the rib cage down is pretty much all abdominal control. Between the rotation here, because you have the open stance, you're going to use obliques to do most of the rotation in my experience, but to keep that rib cage from popping out, you really need a lot more core control. So more focus on very basic core exercises would be the way that I would handle things. I would focus more on crunches. I would focus more on even like mountain climbers, or I don't know, some of the other ones where you take and you're in a plank position on like a physio ball, and you bring your right knee to your left elbow and then your left knee to your right elbow, where you're really kind of shortening the core muscles as much as possible. As far as the distance from your sternum to your pelvic bone, you want that to be shorter, and that will keep those ribs down, keep that rib cage down, keep the chest from popping up. Part of what I see also on your lift of the bow is you're lifting a lot with the shoulders, which is maybe part of what's going on with the actual you questioned your shoulder height being a little bit higher than ideal, and I think it is coming from this overall raising of the chest and leading more with the shoulders and more with the rib cage rather than just your hands. So you might want to consider trying to do this kind of stuff. You can use your bow, but if you have a lighter set of limbs, getting comfortable with how it feels to go from your set position with the hips tucked, legs straight, again, not as intense, but to keep the ab wall tight and to keep control of that while lifting the arms independent of the shoulders. Something else that you might want to work on is also engaging the transverse abdominis, which basically helps prevent hernias from happening. It keeps everything nice and tight. It's like a built-in weight belt around your core, and that can be engaged by pulling your belly button towards the spine and kind of making sure everything is nice and tight. Do that in set position as you go to lift your hands up. And you can stand in front of a mirror with a lighter bow and watch yourself lift your hands independent of your shoulders. So if the camera was my mirror, I'll just look at myself down here, going from set with everything tucked, everything straight on my legs, keeping everything nice and tight, and then watching myself lift my hands and watching that I'm not losing this position here. So if I'm lifting my arms or my hands independent of my shoulders, you can see everything stays there. But if I lift with here and not lift here, I'm doing this, right? And so if I lift with my hands and keep my chest down, it's all basically deltoids that do the lift. Where if I keep the position that I'm in with the chest down and lift up with that rib cage, the deltoids do very little, and that head position also moves a little bit. So keeping the head still without raising the chest up is way easier, because if it's down and I'm just lifting my arms, my head doesn't move. But if I'm lifting my chest up, the head wants to move right away. But if I keep the head still while lifting the chest up, I'm really having to do a whole lot of motor control, which is really, really weird. So the head moving is related to the shoulders lifting, which is related to the chest lifting, in my opinion. And it's all from you're stabilizing so much to try to lock those hips in that you're losing the core dexterity to keep the ribs down. And so everything is elevating and it's all moving all together at one time. So I think if you can relax the overall intensity that you're tucking the hips with, you'll have a lot more left in the tank relative, like as far as brain power, I forget what it's called, but essentially the ability to fire other muscles. You'll have more ability to do that because you'll be engaging the hips as far as stability is concerned much less, which will allow you to have more brain power to do other movements like keep the chest down and engage the ab wall. But once you're positioned again at full draw, not too bad. That front shoulder and maybe the back shoulder we'll see from behind though. But the front shoulder is slightly elevated. Again, that comes up during the lift because down here, it's fine. It's low. But as soon as you get into this position here, and as you go to lift, that shoulder just does the primary motion as far as the lift is concerned, meaning the trap part of the shoulder is doing more of the lift. My computer needs to catch up here. There we go. Hold on one second. All right. If you can keep that chest down, it'll make it feel a lot better as far as the rotation and the drawing and everything is going on as far as that's concerned, to feel a little bit more angular. I think this video got corrupted. Let's see, we'll pull up a different one. I wanted to see the back view for sure. Yeah, so the overall position, like I said, once you're at full draw is not bad. That front shoulder is a little bit elevated. You can see also, if you look at the spine, it's doing this kind of motion. I'm over exaggerating with the cursor, but it is angled that way because you can see the way that this is compressed in and then this is kind of jutted outwards here. That's all related to the chest lifting when you're lifting the bow. Again, I think it's just core control. And then this going in, this coming out is elevating this side, which makes that shoulder look much higher than it actually is. It's not really in a super high position. It's just that the whole rib cage, if it was supposed to be level, if this was the target side over to there, it's tilted that direction, which makes this shoulder go up. That's what's happening. But the overall release is better. definitely something you can work on. It's an easy fix, is to relax that hand when at full draw. Even down here, when you're in like a set position, once you set the hand position, you can see how you've already got a lot of tension to get those fingers straight, right? And so you can even just sit here like now, right now, put your hand in the bow, right, quote unquote, and take your hand, and instead of your fingers being curled and relaxed like this, straighten them out, just like you have here in the shot, and just feel you have a lot of excess tension here, right? So just relax the hand. I like to take my pinky ring and middle finger and curl them against my palm, and then have that index finger just resting on the front of the riser, not holding it, not squeezing against it, but just sitting on it. And then that way, when you cut it loose, you don't have to move your hand at all, and that index finger just resting there is enough to keep the bow from jumping out of your hand. It really is. It's not going to come out of your hand if you have just your hand relaxed. But the reason I'm saying that, number one, is the excess tension in the hand, but also you can see on this one, as the arrow is coming out of the bow, you're grabbing it. You don't really make full contact with the bow before the arrow's gone. Maybe you do, but from this angle it didn't look like it. Either way, that hand, you can see, is moving while the arrow is still in the bow. So if that hand is closing as the arrow's in the bow, it's disturbing the trajectory and affecting it in different ways every shot, because you might grab it sooner than later, and obviously that'll affect performance. And also it'll allow the bow to kind of just do what it needs to do when you go to let it go, and it won't be influenced by you so much. Yeah, reduction on overall intensity will really, really help you there. Let's see, we'll go to the front view here. Actually, we'll go to the rear first. You can be a little more, if you can, sloppy, for lack of better terms, with this follow through. Don't be so rigid. Let that elbow follow this line, and almost like you're trying to elbow somebody behind you. Don't be so quick to stop it. So right now your hand, when it comes off the string, is moving more than the elbow is. So meaning when I go to let it go, you're really just moving about this far, and that hand is doing more of the motion like that, right? So what would be better would be to not break the wrist, but it would be better to keep that position, and as you follow through, let the arm move like this. So not like that, but that. So if I'm aiming and I go to release and follow through, the tip of my elbow follows that arm, that bone, the humerus in my arm. So the tip of the elbow follows that line towards the shoulder, and it goes until I can't move anymore. I'm literally out of movement. I have no more to go. And if somebody was standing back there, and if I let go, I would elbow them, just like I can elbow the back of my chair. So same kind of thing when you're going to let go. Don't increase it to make it happen. Just don't stop it. That's why I'm saying be sloppy. Let that elbow just swing around and behind you. Don't be so rigid with the overall system. I think if you eliminate the grabbing of the bow, this will probably happen a bit more naturally, and it won't be so forced to make that happen as far as the follow through is concerned. Yeah, that's what I would do there. It looks pretty good otherwise. Let's see what you got going on in the top view. Yeah, your overall position is pretty good as far as the alignments. Everything's stacked nicely. Your elbow position here is good. I really don't see much that needs improvement as far as your alignment's concerned. You're right there as far as what's ideal. And the front view. Yeah, I mean, it's good. The follow through, again, just let it flow a little bit more. Don't be so rigid with it. I think part of it is just because of the grabbing of the bow as well, because you can really see from this angle how much you're having to move that hand. And even so, once the hand is on the bow, see how that index finger is sitting on the front of the riser there? That's all you need to do. Don't do anything more than that. And then tuck the middle ring and pinky finger so it's resting against your palm like this, right? So watch this one. You just let it go. Actually, you're moving that bow hand again sooner than you are letting it go. And you're making contact with the front of the riser just about when the arrow clears the bow. And this is, with this camera, whatever it is, a high-speed camera might show something different where you're actually grabbing the bow before it's gone. So, yeah, I mean, all things considered, definitely some progress. Still some things to work on, and hopefully it'll actually reduce some of the workload that you're doing here by engaging the hips less with keeping those knees straight. There is a video that I did recently about having more stability in archery, and I give you the two options and two different ways that you can stabilize the hips with the hip tuck and either the paper towel tear or a hip tuck and externally rotating your legs, essentially, kind of, to lock them in place to engage the hip girdle. So there's two options explained different ways. If you can't find that video, let me know, and I'll get you a link to it, and that'll help kind of clarify some things a little bit more so you can keep control. I would add some more crunches. I would add more stability stuff that is trying to control and keep that sternum from gaining distance away from your pubic bone. You want to keep those two things closer together through more of the ab control and less of the hip tuck. And that will help keep the shoulder down. That'll help keep the shoulders low and will help keep the head from moving. And then let the follow through swing some more, and don't grab the bow. Those are the main takeaways from the video. So hopefully this helps. Thanks for submitting a video coaching review. Also, thanks for letting me use it on my channel. Much appreciated. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Good luck.